Okay, so this video is going to address the question, am I really an INFJ? So there are a lot of people on the comments of my videos telling me that I'm not an INFJ. On the Real INFJ video, there are like 15 people trying to tell me that I'm not an INFJ, despite all the things that I tried to use to prove that I am. So I'm going to address that because there's so many people saying that, and because it's my duty to. Now I've tried to do the best job I can to do this in the comments, deal with those on a case-by-case basis, but I think that it's time that I deal with those on a with the video. Now the videos that I'm making, I think, do a very good job of doing that indirectly by my demonstrating my use of TI, introverted thinking. But I'm going to address the topic directly in this video to do the subject justice, and because I believe that it's my duty to, and that it is also the duty of other YouTubers to do this as well. If they're going to make a statement, they need to prove it, especially if they have a lot of people telling them that they're wrong. So that's what I'm doing. I encourage other YouTubers who have people telling them that they're not INFJs to make this video as well, because it's something that you need to do. Because you do have that duty to the truth. You have that responsibility as a provider of information. That's something I deeply value, because that's just how it should work. If you're going to provide information to a big group of people, you need to make sure that it's accurate. And if there's sufficient reason to believe that it's not accurate, you need to deal with that. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing here. So there are three types that people think I am. People think that I'm INTP, people think I'm INTJ, and ISTP. I'm not even going to talk about INTP because INTPs use extroverted intuition, and it should be extremely obvious by watching my videos that I do not use extroverted intuition. It should be extremely obvious that I use instead introverted intuition. So I'm not even going to hardly address that, because you look at my three monologue videos. That's full of introverted intuition, and look at my first three videos that focused only on introverted intuition. Those are my first three videos. There's no way I use extroverted intuition. I've proved it many times over again that I use introverted intuition. So moving on to INTJ. The INTJ uses introverted intuition as a dominant function, and then extroverted thinking, introverted feeling, and then introverted sensing. Now introverted feelings last, and then I don't remember. I know that they use introverted feeling and extroverted thinking, the middle two, so that would mean that extroverted thinking would have to be second. Okay, sorry about that. So there's the INTJ argument, then there's the ISTP argument. The ISTP uses the same four functions as the INFJ, but instead of being an NI-DOM, the ISTP is a TI-DOM, thinking dominant type. So the first thing I want to get out of the way is the difference between extroverted sensing and extroverted thinking. Now, a lot of people say that I use a lot of extroverted thinking because I'm able to put my ideas into action, because I'm able to execute my theories, because I'm able to put what's in here out there and make it work. Now, first of all, that's not even true, because if you look at my my revolutionary typing system video, it's a dead end. I tried to put those ideas out there, but they didn't work because they're too internal. They're not based in fact yet. They're somewhat intuitive, somewhat introverted thinking, so it was very difficult for me to actually give that traction, because I can't point to anything on someone's face and show people that this is extrovert, this is this function, that's that function, and that's why I think that that person is this type. I can't do that very easily at all. Now, people who can do that, Voltology Code at cognitivetype.com, that's what they do very, very well. They capitalize off that. They make money off of that. That's what they do. Probably because whoever's behind that is an extroverted thinker. But I'm not an extroverted thinker, so I tried to go down that avenue, but I couldn't. It failed. I can't get that stuff out of my head. It's too introverted. And it failed. That's not what I focus on. I focused on it for a little while, but it failed, and that's not the main focus of this channel at all. The main focus of this channel is to promote people being able to speak their own opinions without being censored. And sadly, that is what's not happening on other channels. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to put out that You're Not an INFJ video out there and show people it's okay to have a differing opinion, and you're allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to express your ideas, and I want that to be a reality in the MBTI community. So I put that video out there, and hopefully I'm going to affect some change. So another argument that people sometimes use to associate me with extroverted thinking is a quote that they use from a video. I think it was my I'm Not An INTJ video. And I started off the video. I'll show it to you. Here it is. So video looks like crap. This entire side of my face is clipping, but suck it up. I don't care. Move on. So what that was self-talk. That was me saying, okay, forget about the lighting situation. Just get it done. Forget about all these details. Just make it happen. Make it happen right now. That's not extroverted sensing. That's not extroverted thinking. That's extroverted sensing. Extroverted sensing says, okay, how can we achieve what we need to achieve in the smallest amount of time and make things happen right now? How can we utilize things in our environment to affect change? That's what extroverted sensing is about. That's not extroverted thinking. And self-talk in and of itself isn't really a cognitive function at all. It's simply self-motivation. I have to have that self-talk in me to get me out of the loop where I see that my my videography sucks, like it's clipping right now. But if I were to focus on that, I would never be able to film this video. Or if I did, it wouldn't be near as good because I wouldn't have enough time, and I wouldn't be able to make enough, and I would lose money on it. So that's not extroverted thinking. That has nothing to do with understanding how things work. That's affecting change in the most effective manner. That's extroverted sensing. So I'm going to try to summarize the 4 functions real quick for you. So in a really simplistic format, don't quote me on this. This is just my way of seeing things. So thinking functions tell you the why. Sensing functions tell you what. Feeling functions tell you how. And intuiting functions tell you how it's connected. So thinking functions tell you why does this happen? How does this work? What's going on behind the scenes? How does this system work? Sensing functions tell you what's happening outside in the world. Now this is a pretty terrible way of, really simplistic way of putting it. I should probably spend more time on it before putting it in a video, but I'll put that on the screen. Hope maybe that helps you, maybe it doesn't. But I try my best to just simplify it all down into 4 words to make it simpler. I probably made more confusion through doing that than good, but I'll put it on the screen anyway if someone wants to comment about it, debate about it, let's talk about it. Great. So okay, so why I don't use extroverted thinking. So introverted thinking, I named 3 aspects of introverted thinking in my last video. How we need to connect new systems that we're trying to learn to old systems that we already understand, basically using metaphors to understand new things. And then there's the not to be confused with NI. NI is different because that's seeing patterns, connecting different seemingly unrelated things together. Introverted thinking is all about internal systems, comparing internal systems together to create meaning. You have all these internal ideas that you understand inside of yourself, and in order to understand new ideas, you need to use pre-existing internal concepts and systems that you already understand to understand the new systems. So the introverted thinker is going to highly value the use of metaphor. So introverted thinkers like to focus on raw ideas. I don't really know how else to put that, just raw ideas, raw internal systems of logic that don't have any basis in reality. Like in my my last FE video, I said, okay, extroverted feeling has two different modes, active and passive. That's an internal system. That's an internal idea that you can't fight with extroverted thinking. You can't use evidence to fight that, because it's an internal principle. You can't refute that by any means of extroverted logic. You can't really refute it at all, because it's an internal principle. It's an internal system. It's true. You can't disprove it. And the same thing with, okay, everyone thinks in two different ways, extroverted and introverted. You can't fight that. That's just the way it works. That's an internal raw idea that is the that could be the foundation for a lot of other ideas, and you can you can come to the understanding of a very, very simple internal principle. Like every human being acts on two different has two different components to their mind. There's only two components to the human mind. There's wisdom and there is emotion. And you can, once you understand that principle inside of yourself, you can use that principle to understand other things and to build these huge castles of logic that have no meaning in the outside world. You can't. The ideas that these castles of internal logic come up with don't have any basis in reality. They're all inside of you. And I was doing a lot of that in my high school years. In the English class, I wrote a lot about how there's only two components to the human mind, and how in every essay I wrote in English class and even in other subjects was I was able to bring back to that one internal principle. There's only two components to the human mind: wisdom and logic, wisdom and emotion. And I just kept developing that internal principle to understand other things in the world. And I gradually built up this big, huge castle of internal logic that I used to understand everything and gain a very unique worldview. So that's introverted thinking. So that's the one part of introverted thinking I don't think I touched on in the other video, and a commenter pointed that out. I apologize for that. The ideas, the theoretical standpoint of introverted thinking. So I apologize for that. Another part that I mentioned in the other video, you need to see the system working with the other parts. So if you're learning a brand new concept, something that you've never really understood before, that you've never explored before, you can't just understand that one concept in and of itself by itself in its own little circle. You need to understand how it works with other things around it that are related to it. You need to relate so I can't learn about fashion in the 18th century just by learning about fashion in the 18th century. What is fashion? How does fashion relate to other things? How does it relate to culture? How does it relate to history, what was going on in that time period? How does 18th century fashion relate to 19th century fashion and 17th century fashion? You need to understand how it works in that greater arena, in the bigger picture, to understand anything about it. The introverted thinker also has difficulty learning new concepts, because you need to have a very thorough understanding of the way things work before you can begin to understand it. Because you need to learn how everything works together. And then once you do that, you have a light bulb moment, and then you understand everything about it. You can spend hours and hours and hours studying something and not retain a single bit of information. even if it's really good information that you're studying, until you get that that light bulb moment, you're never going to understand any of it. I don't know why it is that way, but that's just the way introverted thinking works. But when you get that light bulb moment, when you finally understand it, and it all comes together, and it's great, and you probably understand the system much better than even the extroverted thinker, because it's kind of, you give and take, and sometimes, and like, if you have it's just balance. So that was why I don't use extroverted thinking. I would say that's a pretty strong argument. I don't really think you could refute that, because I use introverted thinking. That's just the way it is, and my entire life has reflected that. When I first found out about introverted thinking, it was great. I felt like someone finally understood me, because I thought that there was something seriously wrong with the way I thought about things, until I watched my first introverted thinking video, and then it explained everything that was going on in my high school years. It explained why I had all these really complex ideas that had absolutely no basis in reality. It was great. I felt like that someone actually understood me, and that there were other people like me. And then I watched an extroverted thinking video, and I was like, oh, that's why no one understood why I was doing that, and why so many people just didn't click with it, because they use extroverted thinking, I use introverted thinking, and I was a very strong introverted thinking user. So, and that paired with NI as well. So, moving on to introverted feeling. My argument against introverted feeling, if it's any consequence, I have no idea how I feel. I never think about my feelings. I never talk about my feelings. I don't organize my feelings. I never focus on that at all, ever. I'm very bad at that. Sometimes I'll just explode, and all of a sudden have all these feelings, and I don't regulate them very well. And I never focus on them, and they're not very strong. Or at least that's not a very strong argument. But my stronger argument is that I'm constantly worrying about the way other people feel. I'm constantly monitoring the emotional environment. I'm always focusing on how other people feel, and I'm always trying to improve that social harmony. And now I don't emote very well. I don't have a lot of facial expression, emotion. But there is a good reason for that. Now, some people say that introverted feelers don't emote very much at all and have a cold expression on them, and extroverted feeling users emote a lot more. That's not true. I think that's a misconception, because the introverted feeler is probably less likely to emote, but both can emote very easily if they want to. And I really just don't have a lot of internal emotional energy at all. It's all focused outward. It's all extroverted.